Donald Trump has once again directed his fiery rhetoric across the Atlantic, this time launching a blistering attack on London's Mayor, Sadiq Khan, over the state of crime in the British capital. In words that carried both the bluntness and theatricality for which Trump is known, he portrayed London as a city that has lost control of its streets and placed the blame squarely at Khan's feet. The former American president's statements were not just strong but deeply personal, rekindling a feud that has lasted for years and leaving reverberations in British political and social circles. What has added an even more dramatic dimension to this episode is the claim, reported widely in the press, that King Charles III was stunned by the sheer force of Trump's intervention and by the scale of attention it has received around the world. This unexpected intersection of American populism, British municipal politics, and the monarchy's concern for stability has created a moment of high drama that has drawn in audiences far beyond Britain's shores. Trump's dispute with Sadiq Khan is not new. Ever since Khan first became mayor in 2016, their relationship has been defined by mutual disdain. Khan, as a Muslim of Pakistani heritage and a Labour politician with socially liberal views, represents the kind of urban, multicultural leadership that Trump has often mocked and vilified. For his part, Khan has repeatedly accused Trump of being dangerous, divisive, and hostile to diversity. Their rivalry has flared up at moments of crisis, such as in 2017, when London faced terror attacks and Trump criticized Khan's response. The mayor responded by denouncing Trump's ignorance and hypocrisy. Each encounter left scars, and each fed into a narrative of two leaders locked in an ideological battle far larger than themselves. This latest confrontation, however, has been particularly striking because it comes at a time when London is grappling with real concerns about violent crime and the public mood is highly sensitive to any suggestion that the city is unsafe. In his latest remarks, Trump painted a grim picture of London. He described the city as a place where crime runs rampant, where ordinary people feel unsafe walking home, and where leadership has failed to impose order. He accused Khan of allowing political correctness to compromise public safety and insisted that London has become a cautionary tale for what happens when liberal values are prioritized over tough policing. London was once admired all over the world as one of the safest and greatest capitals, Trump declared, but under Khan it has descended into a disaster. It is unsafe, it is crime-ridden, and it is frankly a disgrace. The bluntness of his assessment, coupled with his willingness to directly name and shame the mayor, ensured that his words would travel quickly. British tabloids seized upon the story, while international networks echoed the controversy. Khan, for his part, refused to remain quiet. He hit back with a statement rejecting Trump's claims as misleading and politically motivated. London remains a world-class city, loved by millions, and respected across the globe, Khan insisted. Like any great city, we face challenges, but to suggest that our streets are out of control is a distortion. This is nothing more than cheap political theatre from a man who has consistently twisted facts and peddled untruths. Khan also highlighted the deeper causes of crime in the city, including the effects of austerity policies that have cut police numbers and reduced investment in community and youth services. He pointed out that many American cities suffer from much higher levels of violence, especially involving firearms, than London ever has. His message was clear: Trump's attack was not only unfair but also hypocritical. The involvement of King Charles III has been one of the most surprising elements of this story. According to sources close to the palace, the king was reportedly stunned by the ferocity of Trump's language and the global headlines it generated. While the monarchy has always prided itself on political neutrality, the spectacle of a foreign leader publicly denouncing London and its mayor inevitably raised questions about Britain's international image. King Charles, who has been careful to project stability and dignity in the early years of his reign, is said to have viewed the incident with concern. Not because he intended to take a side in the dispute, but because he recognized that the world's perception of Britain is shaped not only by government policy but also by high-profile clashes such as this. Royal aides were quick to stress that the king would not make any public comment, but the mere suggestion that he had been taken aback underscores the unusual nature of the situation. The issue at the heart of the debate, of course, is crime in London. The city has faced rising challenges over the past decade, particularly with knife crime and gang violence. Statistics from the Metropolitan Police show that while there have been periods of decline, high-profile incidents continue to cause alarm. Stabbings involving teenagers, often linked to disputes between rival groups, have been especially troubling. Critics of Khan argue that he has failed to demonstrate the leadership required to turn the tide, pointing to delays in boosting police numbers and to what they see as a lack of urgency in tackling the crisis. Supporters counter that Khan inherited a system already weakened by years of budget cuts imposed by central government, and that he has fought tirelessly to restore police funding and expand community programs. They also argue that crime is a complex social issue that cannot be solved by policing alone, but requires investment in education, housing, and opportunity. The polarization of opinion is part of what made Trump's comments so explosive. For some Londoners, his words echoed their own frustrations and fears. They feel that parts of the city have become unsafe and that political leaders are slow to act. For others, however, Trump's intervention was an insult to London and an act of opportunism by a man who has no understanding of the complexities of British society. The media amplified this division, with some newspapers portraying Trump as a truth-teller unafraid to call out uncomfortable realities, while others accused him of interfering in British politics and denigrating a global city for his own political gain. Internationally, the spectacle attracted wide coverage. In Europe, commentators drew parallels with debates in Paris, Berlin, and Stockholm, where concerns about urban crime and integration also dominate political discourse. Trump's words were viewed by many as part of a broader clash between nationalist, law and order politics and progressive, multicultural leadership. For Trump himself, the attack served a clear political purpose. By pointing to London as an example of liberal failure, he reinforced his own brand of strongman politics and appealed to audiences in the United States who share his skepticism of progressive governance. For Khan, the confrontation also offered an opportunity. By standing up to Trump, he positioned himself as a defender of London's dignity and resilience, a stance likely to resonate with many of his supporters. The inclusion of King Charles in the narrative adds a symbolic layer that should not be overlooked. The monarchy is often seen as representing the continuity and identity of the nation, above the political fray. The suggestion that the king was stunned reflects less a personal judgment on Khan or Trump and more an unease about the way Britain is perceived internationally. It is rare for royal sources to be associated with such a reaction, and it signals how far-reaching the consequences of Trump's words have been. What this entire episode reveals is the way modern politics operates in an age of instant communication and globalized media. A comment made by a former American president can ricochet around the world within minutes, sparking debates not only in London and Washington but across Europe and beyond. Social media platforms amplified the drama, with hashtags such as #TrumpVSKhan and #LondonCrime trending for hours. Memes and parodies turned the dispute into entertainment, even as others engaged in serious arguments about public safety and leadership. In this environment, politics becomes part theater, part diplomacy, and part battle for narrative control. Ultimately, the feud between Trump and Khan is less about specific crime statistics and more about competing visions of leadership. Trump represents a populist style that values toughness, simplicity, and spectacle. Khan represents a cosmopolitan approach that stresses diversity, nuance, and community building. Their clash symbolizes the broader ideological battles of our age, battles between nationalism and globalism, between authoritarian swagger and inclusive governance, between fear and resilience. That King Charles has been drawn, however reluctantly, into this dynamic highlights just how significant such debates have become for Londoners. The practical reality remains: the city continues to face challenges in keeping its streets safe, but it is far from the dystopian picture painted by Trump. The future will depend not on verbal sparring across continents but on real policies, real investment, and real leadership. Whether Khan can deliver that is a question for London's voters. Whether Trump's words will have lasting impact is a question for history. For now, what remains clear is that London once again finds itself at the center of a global conversation, its image contested, its leadership scrutinized, and its resilience tested. The feud between Trump and Khan, amplified by the world's media and observed with concern by the monarchy, is not merely a political spat. It is a story about how cities are judged, how